Yo, what's going on, guys? This is Flame and welcome you guys all back to a brand new Last of Us Part 2 video. Today, guys, I'm going to be reacting to the final part of the 4 episodic experience that Naughty Dog is providing fans until the global release on June 19th, 2020, this month, for The Last of Us Part 2 here. It's been an incredible ride so far. You know, ever since this game first got announced, everyone was just hyped for it. It's been definitely a game that we've been looking forward to for a very long time. You know, fans have been waiting 7 years. I've been even waiting 6 years, literally half a decade for this game. And it's so close, man. Just a couple steps away. Like, it's literally like 2 weeks until the game releases, which is absolutely insane. And I can't wait for it, man. I loved how, you know, I'm glad we didn't get a lot of news for this game, which is good. I'd rather experience the game for myself. But just from the trailers and the gameplay and all the stuff that we got so far, man, the game just looks gorgeous. And I cannot wait to experience this game full hand. And it's going to be awesome. Today, though, this episode is going to be providing the inside of the world for The Last of Us Part 2. So probably just going to be more like accessibility, like when we saw the state of play gameplay of Seattle and all that other stuff for The Last of Us Part 2 right here. There's still a lot of news to cover, though, which I'll cover in a different topic of a video. But either way, guys, hope you're all having a great day. And let's react to the last episode of this 4 episodic experience of The Last of Us Part 2 provided by Naughty Dog. Inside the world. Go, the final episode,
The
man.
world of The Last of Us is dangerous. Unless you're living in a protected area, there's something lethal around every corner. Once you venture out of your home, you're in danger. And where we're taking the story and where we're taking Ellie is like each step of the way, she's putting herself in more and more danger to bring these people to justice.
I'm not ready to face the zombies in this game, man. It's going to be difficult what we've seen so far.
The world, in every sense of the word, is bigger than Last of Us Part 1. Both in scale and the amount of physical space that exists for you to explore.
God, man, look how beautiful this looks.
Yeah, this route has its perks. Our hope is to make every corner a challenge, make every decision hard for Ellie. And so we do that not just in the gameplay you experience, but also in the level design.
Man, it's the first ever gameplay
part of that
we
is
saw.
making certain experiences really hostile, be it through weather or through rivers or craggy cliffs or slick snow. But we also use it in terms of how blind the player is. Like, what can they see? How safe do you feel? Can you see a threat coming around the corner? You never know if the bullets in your gun are going to be enough. You never know if you can stop and bandage your arm. You can never fully breathe. And we want you to be in alignment with Ellie, who can never fully breathe when she experiences this trauma.
Damn, so it's like you kind of clear out like a whole area just to be safe to use your stuff.
Like a very close-knit kind of community that's
I'm so excited to see Jackson, man. You know, it was
sustainable ways
shown
of living.
so much in the part 1.
Hydroelectric dam generator that's powering
I can't wait to start that. It's probably going to be the beginning of the game, 100%.
Electricity in Jackson, which is not something that maybe players would expect to see in the world. But given that we're further in time, we wanted to show that there are certain people dedicated in the world to rebuilding a life that doesn't revolve around killing people and scavenging.
Basically,
as you walk around the town, you
humanity.
could hear kids laughing. You could see people going into restaurants and eating, and it's a very kind of tranquil town. Now, we know there's all these horrible things happening outside the walls, but they've been able to protect the innocence of this town.
Jackson, in
That's
many
cool.
ways, represents
I like that. You know, just
at
a
stake
safety in this
for our
world that you
characters,
wouldn't
a
expect
life
anymore,
of
and
peace and
it's here. Yeah.
relative comfort, a life where you can fall in love, a place where children can play and it's okay. And I think, you know, when we were looking at building out Jackson, it's like, okay, how many of those moments can we represent? What's awesome about the world of The Last of Us is it shows just how precious the things that we take for granted in our everyday lives, how precious those things really are.
I got something effed up about this. Like, they're talking about finally somewhere where it's peace and quiet and you can live an everyday life in a world like this.
Seattle,
but
compared to
in
Jackson,
the game,
is,
it's going to probably get destroyed. 100%, I could
It's
see it.
more of a war zone, I would say.
Yeah.
Part of the interesting thing with Seattle or the Pacific Northwest is that there's all this rain and all this foliage and wildlife, and it's this very lush area that if someone were to settle down, it'd be a pretty good place to settle down, just as far as the kind of fruit you can scavenge, the animals you can hunt. And then because it is so lush, because it is so teeming with resources, is why there are multiple factions trying to fight over those resources. One faction you run into in Seattle is the Washington Liberation Front. When the outbreak happened, the military took some pretty drastic actions and quarantined parts of the country. And this was their way of protecting the population that has survived this horrendous outbreak. And because of that, it led to rise of these resistance groups. And in the first game, we saw the Fireflies. And we heard about other groups. And in this game, we get to see, here's another group that rose called the Washington Liberation Front that was able to defeat the army and thereby
that's so cool.
Take over a lot of their equipment. And they're this very militaristic faction.
I like that, you know, it gives us a lot more detail of what kind of happened
have
in
the
Joel's
Seraphites.
time of what
And
was
they're
going
a
down.
religious group that also came up out of the outbreak that believed that the pandemic came because of sin. They're trying to reset the world and return it to a better place than it was.
In The Last of Us, almost any group that has survived this long has to be dangerous. If you're not dangerous, you're not going to survive. You're going to become someone's victim. And the two factions you run into are both very dangerous. The WLF has a lot of military equipment that they're able to use to defend large numbers.
Never mind.
The Seraphites are very quiet and stealthy and is able to use the large amount of foliage to their advantage, and they fight more in this kind of guerrilla warfare.
How you deal with them is going to be different because they have different language, they different communication style. The scars will whistle to each other with this different language. And they have some of the stuff that you have. You have a bow and arrow, they can hit you with arrows and impale you. And you have to pull the arrow out. They have big sledgehammers and
I think that's going to be one thing I forget about the game is like when I'm facing a lot of people and if I have like an arrow in my shoulder or something like that, and it's like, how the hell am I taking damage? And it's like, oh yeah, there's an arrow in my arm, I gotta pull it out. I already know I'm probably going to forget about that.
A new complicated choice for the player. We saw in them an opportunity to challenge people's perceptions of what a combat setup can be. We wanted to find really hard choices. The dogs themselves have names. They're called out by their owners. We wanted every setup to be challenging.
Huh. I just think for stealth gameplay it's going to be hard because of the dogs. That's going to be one thing.
How many do you think it would take to bring down a moose?
Infected are still a threat in this world. We wanted to take first our basic classes that we had in the first game and say, okay, what's different about them now? So we'll have scenarios where way more runners, like we can have hordes. Just escaping because the odds are just overwhelming. This thing just keeps mutating. There's certain evolutions of infected that you haven't seen before, certain new classes.
Yeah, literally freaking volatiles in this game.
Which kind of have these
literally, man, I'm not ready for that.
When you get near them.
You're running down a hallway and you have to suddenly make a decision like, oh, do I want to take the damage and go through this cloud or find some other route or go back the way I came?
Oh, if you're playing on the hardest difficulty, no, you're going to die.
Decisions about how you're going to deal with the threat behind you or potentially in front of you.
So again, it's about how do we make fighting against infected intelligent. So when you come on a space, you're listening to audio cues because different classes will make different sounds. If you just go in guns blazing and throw caution in the wind, you could easily get overwhelmed and regret that strategy.
That level of uncertainty
so they just call that out for players that like to go guns blazing in The Last of Us. You have to actually play stealth, which I like. That's how I play The Last of Us. I try to play it stealthy the whole entire game. I don't care if it's boring. I really love that gameplay. And if it comes choices where I really need to do that, then there we go. So that's one thing I like about the final part of this 4-episode experience of The Last of Us Part 2 about Inside the World. I just want to say one thing. Congratulations on Naughty Dog right here, man. The game still looks perfect. And that's one thing in the world that I like, right? Because in The Last of Us, the first one, it really focused on the east part, like the east side of the United States. And then when we see like different factions of what's going on in Seattle, the Washington side, we see, different factions except like the Fireflies, right? Like we know about the Fireflies, they're a rebellion group that tried to help humanity out and everything like that in the first game and try to still find a cure. And then in this game, it focuses on 2 other factions, which is really cool, man. And I like that because I feel like it gives us a lot more information of what happened to this world before we knew of the first game. And I'm talking about it to the point of where Sarah died until we knew 20 years later of what we played through Joel. Like, I like having that information within those 20 years of what happened to everything. Like, maybe when Ellie gets captured by this military group, right, one of the factions, maybe they tell us if the side of the military was so bad, and here's flashbacks of this and that from Seattle, and this huge pandemic going on, and everyone just going crazy and just trying to survive, and there's a war going on, even though there's zombies outside. It's insane. One thing that they just cleared up is that if you go in guns blazing on this game, even if you're on normal difficulty in that, there's going to be a huge faction in this, that there's a lot more runners in this game, that if you go in guns blazing, they're going to overwhelm you and you're just going to die. So I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it's the players that like to go in guns blazing and do their thing on The Last of Us. If they've done it in part 1, they want to do it in part 2 right here. That's not really going to be a thing. Like, yes, you could do that maybe in some parts, but in other parts, you really have to play it smart and stealth and have to try to keep it cool, and then eventually you can go back to, you know, your gun spree or whatever the heck that you want to do within the game, which that's really cool, the detail right there. And like I said before, guys, we're literally 2 weeks away from this game coming out, or 2 weeks in a day, 15 days from the game being globally released, man. I still can't believe it. You know, it did kind of suck that I didn't provide the other 2 episodes here on the channel, but that's definitely something that I want to talk about. And there's a whole bunch of news still with The Last of Us Part 2 here that I want to discuss in the future videos leading up to the global release of this game. There's also one thing that got, or I guess a little bit of information you could definitely say about this game, that if we're looking for any more detail or any more trailers, it's probably going to be the launch trailer that will be happening before the global release, probably on the Sunday, Monday, around there, which, you know, I'll discuss and all that other stuff, but we'll just have to wait for the launch trailer. But either way, I hope you guys all enjoyed my reaction right here to The Last of Us Part 2 Inside the World, one of the 4 episodic experiences that Naughty Dog has provided us between, you know, the global launch of the game. But either way, guys, hope you all yourselves a great day. Make sure to comment down below what are you guys' thoughts and opinions on The Last of Us Part 2 right here. What's your favorite thing that they have added so far in the game, or any new add-ons, whatever it might be. And we'll see you guys in a brand new video here soon for the channel. But much love, guys, and as always, have yourselves a wonderful day.